Among all young generation monks in world, the name of Swami Vivekananda flashes bright and clear. He was one of the most influential monks of all times. Hailing from India, Swami Vivekananda's life was not a smooth ride at all. As a matter of fact, he had to sail through tremendous difficulties in life. In this video we will tell about interesting Swami Vivekananda facts. We are going to explore some of the most interesting facts about this inspiring monk who inspired millions of men and women across the world. Let's begin.
In number 10.
After Swamiji's father's death, the family was reduced to poverty. On many mornings Vivekananda would tell his mother that he had lunch invitations and he would go out so the others would get a larger share. He writes, "On such days, I had very little to eat, sometimes nothing at all. I was too proud to tell anyone." The Maharaja of Khetri, Ajit Singh, used to send 100 rupees to Swamiji's mother on a regular basis to help her tide over her financial problems. This arrangement was a closely guarded secret.
In number 9.
While going towards the Himalayas, Swamiji along with Swami Akhandananda landed, instead, at Vaidyanath Dam now in Jharkhand. The two sannyasins met Akriya Rajnarayan Basu of Brahmo Samaj. Vivekananda told his associate to introduce himself as a common sadhu who doesn't understand English. During the meeting, Basu used the English word plus and used both his fingers as a sign. Vivekananda remained silent. Many years later, when Vivekananda achieved world fame for his great speeches before the English-speaking world, Rajnarayan Basu used to recount the incident saying, "I was under the impression that he didn't know English." Courtesy, Shandanu Gupta's article in Bardhaman July 7, 2013.
In number 8.
In 1891, the Dewan of the state of Alwar, now in Rajasthan, invited Vivekananda to the palace to meet the ruler. The ruler Mangal Singh asked Vivekananda, "I have heard you're a well-learned man. You can easily earn money. Then why do you beg?" Vivekananda replied, "Can you tell me why you ignore your state duties, have lunch and dinners with Englishmen and go on hunting?" The ruler then took a different tack and asked, "Well, Swamiji, all these people worship idols. I don't believe in idol worship. Can you tell me what will happen to me?" Vivekananda replied, "To each his own belief," and then suddenly asked an oil portrait of the Maharaja removed from the wall. Swamiji asked the Dewan to spit on the portrait, and the latter balked at the request. The Dewan said, "What are you saying, Swamiji? How can we spit on the portrait of our Maharaja?" Swamiji replied, "It may be his portrait, but the Maharaja is not physically inside this portrait. It can't move or speak like the Maharaja, and yet all of you are unwilling to spit on this portrait. Because you know that spitting on it would mean insulting your lord, your Maharaja." Swamiji then turned towards the Maharaja and said, "Well, Your Highness, though you are not present inside this portrait, your men feel they will insult you if they spit on it. The same applies to people who worship idols made of wood, soil or stone. The idol only reminds them of their god. They do not worship wood, soil or stone, they worship their god through these idols."
In number 7.
The great figure who toured America and England and was known for his brilliant eloquence scored only a 47% at the university entrance level examination, a 46% in the FA. Later this exam became Intermediate Arts Oriya, and a 56% in his BA exam.
In number 6.
Swamiji simply worshipped his mother. After his Chicago fame, when Pratap Mazumdar viciously condemned him, "He is nothing but a cheat and a fraud. He comes here to tell you that he is a fakir," Swamiji responded in a letter to Isabel McKinley. "Now, I do not care what even my own people say about me, except for one thing. I have an old mother. She has suffered much in her life, and in the midst of all she could bear to give me up for the service of God and man, but to have given up the most beloved of her children, her hope, to live a beastly immoral life in a far distant country, as Mazumdar was telling in Calcutta, would have simply killed her."
In number 5.
When Jojendra Bala, his sister, committed suicide, Swamiji told Yogen Maharaj, "Do you know why we Dattas are so talented in our thinking? Ours is a family with a history of suicides. There have been many in our family who have taken their own lives. We are eccentric. We do not think before we act. We simply do what we like and do not worry about the consequences."
In number 4.
After the death of his paternal uncle Taraknath, his wife Jayanata Sundari ousted Swamiji's family from their ancestral house and filed a suit in the court. Swamiji fights the various litigation suits for 14 years, and on the last Saturday of his life on June 28, 1902, he puts an end to the court case after paying some financial compensation.
In number 3.
In Meerut, Swamiji used to borrow a volume each from the collected works of Sir John Lubbock. Swami Akhandananda used to bring the volumes for him from the city library, and Swamiji used to return the volume the next day. The librarian expressed doubts whether Swamiji was really reading the volumes back to back. One day, Swamiji himself met the librarian, who asked him questions from the volumes. The librarian came to know that Swamiji had not only read the volumes, but had memorized most of the texts.
In number 2.
Swami Vivekananda stayed in Rishikesh for some time. He was once down with malaria. One day, the Swami's pulse beat and breathing nearly stopped. There was no physician nearby, and it was difficult to take Swamiji to a doctor. The Swami felt his end was near. Suddenly, an old sannyasin came into his cottage, gave him honey and peepal churna and left. After a few moments, Swamiji opened his eyes and became conscious. He said, "I felt during my unconsciousness that I had to do some great work for God. There is no rest, no peace for me till I complete that mission."
In number 1.
1890, on January 22, Swami Vivekananda reached Gazipur in eastern Up. He had heard of a great Baba, Pauhari Baba, who lived in a cave, and used to consume negligible quantity of food. On February 4, Swamiji wrote to Pramanada's Mitra saying he met the Baba, who was a Mahapurush, great saint. Swamiji decided to take Diksha from the Baba, but on the preceding night, he saw in his dream Sri Ramakrishna standing silently near his bed, watching him sadly. The Swami temporarily abandoned his idea. For 21 nights, Vivekananda saw Sri Ramakrishna in his dream standing near his bed in a sad mood, and ultimately the sannyasin decided not to take Diksha from the Baba. He then wrote to Mitra, "I will now never go to any men, Babas, now."
Thanks for watching. Do like, share and subscribe for more exciting content.